fiber friends, I'm Sarah. This is a Yarn Lab video and today it's a sort of special video. I'm going to share with you my haul from Rhinebeck, New York Sheep and Wool back in 2018. So you may be aware that New York Sheep and Wool, or as knitters love to call it, Rhinebeck, because it's held in Rhinebeck, upstate New York, is happening this weekend, October 21st and 22nd. It is one of, if not the biggest gathering of fiber enthusiasts that takes place each year in upstate New York. And we knitters enjoy going and enjoy bringing back entirely too much yarn and or fiber each year. I've only been once. I went in 2018. It is now 5 years later and I still have most of my haul from that year unknit, unspun, and unused. I've promised myself and my husband that I will not go back to another New York Sheep and Wool until I have fully used my haul from 2018. And I think it's time to get it out of bins and prioritize that goal, because you know what? I'd love to go back to New York Sheep and Wool. It's an amazing festival. I had an absolute blast, and maybe next time I won't bring home quite so much wool with me. So I've got my entire haul laid out on my dining room table here. I did actually intend to make a video walking my YouTube channel through my haul back in 2018, but I wasn't really making videos consistently at the time and it never sort of happened. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of show off what I brought home then and where it is now. So first up, this is actually what is left over from a Jill Draper Empire skein. So those are those really big, I feel like they're like almost 400, 500 grams of worsted weight wool. This is what's left over of the Empire skein. And I did also buy a single skein of contrasting color. And this wool I did wind up and knit up right away into this cardigan. This is the Ferny Bray by Davies Designs, and it used most of the yarn, although I do definitely have enough for a winter hat left over. So this here, it'd probably make a lovely matching hat or a lovely set of mittens. This yarn is a 100% wool. It's nice and spongy is how I would describe it. It's certainly soft enough for next to skin wear, but it's really, yeah, spongy is the word that I would use to describe this yarn, and not in a bad way, in a really quite lovely way. And I do wear this cardigan a bit. I did put a little bit too many buttons on, and I don't love the buttons that I ended up putting on it, but yeah, it's a great cardigan overall. Next up, I've got two skeins of Woolen Boon Wicked Pretty Yarns for All. This is the colorway Grievances in the Boon Classic 4-ply fingering superwash merino, as well as the single skein of Skain Queen. And these three skeins are intended for the Maritimo by Caitlin Hunter, and I will pop in a picture of this knit here. And I do have a mini skein of a darker teal for the sort of third color for that knit. So these have a project in mind, but you know, a fingering weight knit top is not a small knit, so I haven't cast it on yet. Up next, I have one skein left of this Get Real, Get Maine, and it is a merino alpaca blend, and you've seen this recently because I did use the other two skeins in my tessellated vest by Andrea Mowry, which is actually her New York Rhinebeck sweater pattern for this year. I have two super drapey and luscious skeins from Persimmon Tree Farm. This is 100% alpaca. You can see super fine alpaca, 660 yards each. And I've got two of these with no real plan on what to knit with them. I have three skeins left from, I think I purchased 12 of Harrisville Designs Highland worsted weight in this sort of midnight blue colorway. I used one skein to knit these thrummed mittens. So you can see I've got beautiful rainbow thrums inside. And the rest went into this cabled pullover. This is the Gnome pullover by Moira Engel. It came from an Interweave Knits magazine back in 2018. I knit it in pieces and seamed it together. And this is going to feature in an upcoming video because it is just giant, like way too large for my husband, way too large for my father. So we're gonna have a little project to sort of try and salvage this sweater. But 3 skeins left with no plan as of this moment. This one here is another giant skein of yarn. This is a Miss Babs yarn, and that tent was just packed. There's always a huge lineup, apparently, for her tent, and you know, I had lots of fun chatting with other knitters in that line, but her tent was, or her booth was packed. And this is 100% superwash blue face Leicester wool. It is 1,750 yards in 439 grams. So there is a fingering weight sweater or top waiting to be knit from this wool, or a very large shawl project all in one skein. So I think there was a Joji Locatelli pattern that I had in mind to knit this one up into, but I'm not certain. Next up, I've got 3 skeins from Green Mountain Spinnery. These are all a 2-ply worsted weight, 100% American wool, 140 yards. It doesn't have the weight on the skein. But I thought 3 colors here might be a nice sort of color work accent. No real plan with this. I do know that I could match this easily with some woolen spun hand spun of my own, or with yarn from a local mill to me. Custom Woolen Mills spins up a very similar yarn to this, and so I could always add to this in order to, you know, fluff out a project. Also from Harrisville Designs, I've got 2 skeins of Flywheel, and this is 100% wool, 170 yards and 50 grams. And I think my intention for this is like a pair of Selbu mittens, so a colorwork snowflake type mitten. I did take home 2 of these braids from Marshmallow Farms. It's just called Fluff, and it's combed cormo top. It's undyed, so they have a chocolate and a white. I did already spin up one set of this into a light to dark color gradient where I spun some pure white and some pure chocolate, and then I blended 75-25, 50-50, 75-25 to have sort of a little color gradient. I haven't knit that up, but I have 1 more left to spin. Need to percolate a project for that. Speaking of chocolate cormo, I was determined to bring home a fleece, and I picked up this absolute stunner. This is a chocolate, you know, naturally brown cormo fleece, and you can see it is the softest, loveliest. The crimp on these locks is amazing, and it is clean enough to spin in the grease. I believe it was a coated sheep, although I don't know that it would have been coated, since there's so much sun bleaching of the tips. Like, you can see the color is significantly lighter at the tip than the roots. But it's a totally clean fleece that has been more or less sitting untouched. I did sample a little of it a couple years ago, but I think this fleece needs to be a spinning project really soon. And speaking of spinning projects, I did take home 2 of those loop bumps, the bullseye bumps, and I'll pop a picture of what these would have looked like here. There's still about 1/3 of this color waiting to be spun. These 3 here came from the blue bump, as well as some black just pure merino that I brought home. And the idea here is to do Stephen West's Marled Mania, Marled Magic, one of the Marled projects, the sweater. So this would be the yoke and the cuffs, and then the sweater body, and then the last third I was going to try and do a matched gradient for the sleeves. So I got the spinning done probably back in 2019, and I just need to get started on the knitting on this project because this yarn came out super squishy and soft and lovely. I grabbed this little gradient set from Gails Art, and these minis are just delightful. I think that they are sort of all kind of random lengths. But, you know, you can never have too many mini skeins, and I guess I decided $25 for 4 quite beautiful mini skeins. Although the bag says 5, so there must be one floating around in my stash all by itself somewhere. I've got 3 skeins of Finn sheep fingering weight wool. Each one of these, does it have the yardage? Is 275 yards. And initially I bought this set and then the 3 skeins in this brown, thinking to do a set of sweaters for Alex and Dom, who were quite young at the time, being that this was 5 years ago. Didn't get around to it, and now this isn't likely enough yarn to do a sweater for them, or at least this one would have been, the yardage is less on the brown, and so I think this might end up being maybe a vest knit for myself. We'll see. Also from the Miss Babs booth, I saw this set on the first day and ended up caving in and going back for it on the second day, mainly because it's it spoke to my Italian heart, being named after the Amalfi Coast, which is actually where Kevin and I went for our honeymoon. And this is sort of a gradient set. I believe these were initially dyed and sold as part of a specific project. Like, I think there was like a shawl that used this gradient, and I absolutely loved it. And like I said, it spoke to my love for the Italian Seaside, and couldn't walk away from it. Ended up going back in on the second day to make sure it came home with me, where it has then sat in the bag. And finally, I have a sweater quantity of Studio Donal in their soft Donal yarn, in this lovely red color. It is it comes right from Ireland, and it's 100% merino wool, and it is a lovely tweed. And this is meant to be some sort of cabled cardigan or sweater for myself. So we knitters are nothing if not experts at expanding our stashes far beyond potentially our knitting capacity. I've got this whole table full of yarn still from that one weekend 5 years ago. And it really is past time that I prioritize diving into this particular component of my, exceedingly large stash of yarn and fiber. If you are going to New York Sheep and Wool this weekend, let me know in the comments below what you're most excited about finding. I know for me as a Canadian, I was just so excited to get my hands on some yarns and some fiber that are a little bit more rare and difficult to get at Canadian local yarn shops, as well as, to purchase things that wouldn't come with quite so much shipping and handling and customs fees. I did jam all of this in my suitcase and bring it back across the Canadian border. And I promised that I declared, almost all of it. But maybe not at its actual retail value when I went through customs. I'm not the only knitter guilty of that, I'm sure, but I need to prioritize knitting this because I'd like to go back to New York Sheep and Wool again someday. So if you're headed to New York Sheep and Wool this weekend, have an amazing time. Make sure you get into the barns and see the sheeps. I mean, it's also like a breed standard sheep show, so you can go and watch them. It's like the American Kennel Club best in show situation, but for sheep, which is just super fascinating. They had shearing demos. They had alpaca high jumping contests, I believe I saw. Was it alpacas or were they goats? It was just, there was so much going on, so many wonderful knitters. It's just an amazing, amazing time. So if you're going, please enjoy, please touch something soft for me, and try not to bring home more yarn than you can chew. That's all I've got for you today. Happy knitting, spinning, crocheting, weaving, felting, whatever it is you do with fiber, because after all, this is the Yarn Lab.